So, we warmly welcome you all on this wonderful session on resume writing and interviewing skills. So, this is Abdul Shakur from the Institute of Financial Accountant UK, and I am the Regional Director for Institute of Financial Accountant UK in Pakistan. So, I warmly welcome you all on this session. So, the participants who have joined recently, so the people are joining continuously. So, we have waited for a minute and I believe two so that the people can join. So thank you very much again for the participants who have joined recently. So let's have a brief introduction to what Institute of Financial Accountant UK is all about. Okay, so Institute of Financial Accountant UK is an internationally recognized professional accountancy membership body having presence in more than 80 countries with more than 40,000 students and members. So, as I said, that Institute of Financial Accountant UK has a global presence with in more than 80 countries, and yes, Institute of Financial Accountant UK is a full member of International Federation of Accountants, and this is also recognized by HM Treasury UK, and we have a different MOUs and mutual recognition agreements with different other professional and academic bodies. And yes, the members get the designated letter that are AFA UK and MIP Australia. And we are giving two memberships at the price of one. That is the group membership of Institute of Financial Accountant UK and Institute of Public Accountants Australia. So we are present in UK, Europe, Middle East, South Asia, and other countries as well. So what we are doing at Institute of Financial Accountant UK in 2020 and beyond 2021 in Pakistan as well, we are developing the Institute of Financial Accountant UK presence in Pakistan. Uh, at this point in time, we have more than 400 members in Pakistan, and we have collaborations and MOUs with different universities over here. And recently, in the previous 2 weeks, we have signed an MOU with Superior University Lahore, and we have an MOU with Ikra University, Karachi, and Islamabad, and UMT Lahore. So we are having a growing number of members in Pakistan, and we are also building alliances with the other professional organizations and professional institutes over here in Pakistan. And recently, we have introduced a completely changed IFA educational program with another professional body from the UK. And yes, we are providing the value and support to the members in Pakistan locally. So what is the differentiation and what is the support that we are providing to the members? Yes, we have the in-country representative. Apart from the other international bodies, they don't have any representative in Pakistan. Yes, I am the regional director for Institute of Financial Accountant UK in Pakistan, and we regularly organize the CPD sessions. In this COVID, we are organizing CPD session in online mode via Zoom. And before the COVID, we were having the physical sessions on different topics. So we have the magazine, that is the bi-monthly magazine, and every member receive a magazine in the soft form and the hard form as well. And we have the digital platform, and we have the weekly e-newsletter that is sent to the each and every members so that they can remain updated. Then there is a continual professional development, as I said earlier, that we provide CPD sessions in online mode at this point in time for the professional development, and this is also the regulatory requirement that each and every member have to complete 40 CPD hours in a year. And in this point in time, we are running these CPD session in blended approach. They are in online and into face-to-face basis as well. This is these are our upcoming CPD session and those programs. Uh, on 26th of March, we are holding another CPD session on financial modeling, that is on discounted cash flow model, and we have the internal audit planning and execution and reporting session in first week of April. Then we are going to start a certified financial modeler course as well that contains 16 CPD hours. So this is the certified financial modeler course. There is some more details, and its new batch is starting from 29th March, and it will gives each and every member a 16 CPD hours. So it has the designated letters as well, and there is a career growth. This is the most emerging skill set that is required by the industry and the market. And I have given a link to the registration as well. We will be sharing the link in uh, chat window as well. Okay, so we have the internal audit planning, execution, and reporting CPD session. This is a 3 hour CPD session, and yes, it is happening in the first week of April. Then we have a full-fledged, then we have the another free CPD session on financial modeling with DCF model. It contains 1.5 hours CPD session. We have an international conference as well in uh, autumn 2021 in London that is planned, but this is not confirmed yet that due to the COVID, will it be possible to hold a physical session or not? But yes, we have a plan. Okay, so this is our today's session on resume writing skills and interviewing skills with Mr. Muhammad with Adil Muhammad Bhatt. So thank you very much, sir, for your valuable time. I would like to uh, introduce in a very brief manner. So Mr. Adil Mohammed Butt is a fellow member of Institute of Financial Accountant UK and Institute of Public Accountants Australia. He has BSc in Management from Indiana University and MBA in Professional Accounting from Fordham University. And he is the founder director of CAMS College and Avicenna School System. He have more than 26 years of experience in education, teaching, and training field. So thank you very much, sir, for your valuable time and for our today's session. So these are our contact details as well. If you have any query and question, you can contact me at any time. And as we have the members and the non-members in this session, and if there is anyone who has completed a professional qualification, just like ACCA, CA, or ICMA, or if there is anyone who is at the final stages and having a 3 years of experience, he can get the membership of Institute of Financial Accountant UK and Institute of Public Accountants Australia. If you will be having any question or query regarding the membership as well, you can contact me on the given details. So over to you, sir.
Thank you, Abdul Shakur. Let me just share my screen.
Yeah,
Okay, can everybody hear me?
we can hear you. And
Okay, great. Okay, Shakur, is my screen being shared? Yes. Okay.
yes, it is sure.
Okay, everybody, this is going to be a session on resume writing and interviewing techniques. And I'm going to start off by asking you one simple question. What is the purpose of writing a resume? What I want you to do is to write down your answer in the chat box. And while you do so, I will just give you about 10 seconds to do so. While you do so, I will just go through an introduction of mine. Um, Abdul Shakur has already informed you that I'm a fellow member of the Institute of Financial Accountants as well as the fellow member of IPA Australia. I'm the founder director of CAMS College and the Avicenna School System. I have a BSc in Management from Indiana University, Bloomington, with a minor in psychology, and an MBA in Professional Accounting from Fordham University. For the last 26 years, I have been in the field of education and training, and I have been teaching chartered accountants, ACCAs, and as well as BBAs, MBAs, and other professionals. So I've been doing that for the last 26 years. Okay, what you will learn in this session that we have with you tonight, is you will learn objectives of writing a resume, the question that I've already put forth to you at the beginning. And what we will also do in this 1.5 hour session is to talk about some common myths, to dispel these common myths that people have about resume writing. We will also discuss some effective tools of writing resumes, and we will cover some basics of a covering letter. You know, some companies in their job postings ask for a cover letter to be submitted. So I think that is also a part and parcel of writing a good resume. Once we've covered these areas, I will also want to spend some time in talking about job interviews and how to prepare for a job interview and what are the skills and techniques uh, of of uh, of having an effective interview. Um, at the end of the session, there is going to be a Q&A session, which is going to be moderated by Mr. Abdul Shakur. So I want you to just put your questions in the chat box. Abdul Shakur is going to go through them, and then he will ask me those questions. He will ask those questions later on. Okay. Um the purpose of a resume, for those of you who answered, is to get a job, is incorrect. The purpose of a resume is not to get a job. That is the common myth which most people have. I've been teaching for a very long time, and whenever I ask this question, most of the students and most of the people in my classes always say that the purpose is to get a job. That's not the purpose. The reality is that the purpose of a resume is to get an interview, right? No recruiter will look at a resume and say, I want to hire this person. What a recruiter will do is that he or she will look at a resume and they will say that let's call him a very good resume, interesting resume. Let's call this person for an interview. So you should keep this thought in mind, that the objective of the resume that you write or the CV that you write is not to get a job, but to get an interview. The importance of this is something which will become clearer as we cover the topics further. Now, the second question I want to ask you is how much time do you think a recruiter will spend in reviewing your resume? Once the recruiter receives your resume, how much time do you think he will spend? And that leads us to the second myth. We have a myth that the recruiter will spend considerable time reviewing your resume. That is not correct. The recruiter will probably not spend more than a minute in assessing your resume, 30 seconds or 45 seconds if you're lucky. So these two things you must keep in mind whenever you sit down to write your resume. One is that the objective of a resume is to get the interview. That is the basic purpose of a resume. And secondly, that you have all of 45 seconds to 1 minute in order to make an impression on the recruiter. In that 40 seconds or in that 1 minute, the recruiter will decide whether to keep your resume on the interview pile or to keep your resume on the reject pile. So with these two thoughts, these two objectives, if you have in mind, then you will begin to start to write a very effective resume. Those are the basics that you must keep in mind. Okay, now let's start with the content of basically writing a resume. The first thing that we will uh, do is that you have to put in your contact details on your CV, and your contact details should include your name, it should include your address, it should include your contact number, your email address, and these days another thing that people often put on their CVs is their LinkedIn address or their LinkedIn reference. What is the most important aspect of this resume, of this contact detail? The most important aspect of this contact information is your contact phone number or your contact email. 90% of the recruiters will either call you or they will send you an email, right? Very few people will send you a letter. Nobody sends a letter these days. So most that people will do is that they will call you. So it is very important for you to have a number which is active, have a mobile number over there which is active and which is your number, and keep your mobile phone on, because a recruiter will call you probably once, probably twice for an interview, and if you don't answer him back in those 2 or 3 calls, the recruiter will just go on to the next CV and he will put your resume on the reject pile. So it's very important for you to be aware of this. The second thing that you must have on your CV is a job title and a standout summary. The job title is basically the job posting or the job position that you're applying for, and that must be there, on your resume. With the job title, you must put a short covers your experience, your the results that you have achieved in that particular position. It should contain taglines, certain keywords which are essential for if your resume is going to be reviewed by an ATS system. The ATS system is an applicant tracking system which is often used by big companies and some companies to basically go through hundreds or thousands of resumes. So those taglines is very important, and that tagline basically must have information which deals with your competencies, with your core competencies, and with your expertise. Just to give you an example, for example, if you notice that the job title is of the internal auditor, and the tagline that I have used is effective communicator, team player, account management person, and then the summary, you should include information which should be of 2 or 3 sentences of what you can do for the company, demonstrate how your background and experience will help the company solve a particular problem, mention your greatest accomplishments as they pertain to the position you're applying for, and to discuss your specialty and what makes you an expert in that particular area. So, this information is something which is important for the ATS system. What I recommend highly is that you should review the job postings very carefully and look at words which are used in the job posting itself. And if you possess those skills, then you mention them over here, because those are the skills which are going to be reviewed by the applicant tracking system, which is a computerized system to go through applications. So that is something that you must keep in mind while writing your summary and your job title. Okay. The second thing, the third thing that you should have on your CV is your education detail. The education detail should contain the dates of your qualification, the qualification that you have achieved on these dates, the name of the institution or your alma mater from which you have attained those qualifications, and the grades that you have attained. Now, it is important for you to do this in a reverse chronological order, which means that you should start with the latest qualifications first. And uh, the alma mater is important because sometimes what happens is that maybe the recruiter or the interviewer is from your own institution. He has graduated from the same university or from the same college. And if that is true, then you have an ally sitting on the interview panel, and that is always good in a job interview. Grades, what to do about grades? My suggestion to students and to most of you would be that if you have A grade or a B grade, then you should mention it on your CV. But if you have anything less than a B, then don't mention it on the CV. Why do I recommend that? Is because remember, the purpose of the resume is to be selected for the interview pile, so that there should be nothing which should reflect negatively upon you. Remember, it is okay to omit information from your CV if it reflects negatively upon you, but it is not okay to lie on your CV. So if you have a C grade, don't make it into a B grade. But if it's a C grade, just don't mention it, and just it will probably come up in the interview. But in the interview, you have the luxury of two-way communication, and in a two-way communication, you would have the opportunity to explain yourself, or to defend that particular grade that you have achieved in your career if you have achieved a poor grade. So which basically leads me to rule number one, is that you should never ever lie on your resume. Never lie on your resume. Just leave out the negative information. Remember, interviewer, a recruiter only has about 30 seconds to 1 minute to basically decide whether to put you on the interview pile or to put you on the reject pile. So in that 30 seconds, if he or she sees a negative information that reflects negatively upon you, you are more likely to end up in the reject pile. So if it's a bad grade, just don't mention it. Okay, just wait for the interview where you can explain yourself. Remember, the objective is to get your foot in the door. The objective is to get the interview. Okay, so that's what you should keep in mind. Okay, this is the example of the education profile. Mention the dates, the institution or the uh, professional body from where you have attained that qualification, and the result that you have attained. So this is just an example of how you should mention your education profile on your CV. Okay, the next heading on the CV is going to be your work experience. Now, a lot of students, a lot of professionals are confused when it comes to work experience, because they say that work experience must be in your field and it must be for a paid position. Well, that's a myth. The reality is that the work experience need not be in your field and not something for which you receive remuneration. Many people fresh out of college, have very limited work experience. They don't have paid work experience, but they have experience for which they have not been paid. For example, they may have volunteered for an organization, or they may have worked in an organization for an internship for which they may not have been paid, for which but that also is work experience, right? And you should mention it. There are two people, both of them have done internship in school or college or university, or both of them have done some volunteer work. One of them writes it on the resume, the other one does not. Who has a better chance of being selected? Of course, the one who writes it on his or her CV has a better chance of being placed on the interview pile. So work experience, you should mention it. Sometimes people ask me that what should they mention first? Should they mention the education part earlier on in their CV, or should they mention the work experience before the education? Well, if you are a fresh graduate, or if you are fresh out of college, or you have attained a fresh qualification, your education is the strongest point about your personality or about your skill set. So education should be mentioned first and work experience should be mentioned second. However, as you progress in your career, as you gain more and more experience, your work experience becomes more important, becomes more marketable, and makes you look better. So you should put your work experience first and then your education second. So basically, for example, somebody like me who's had about 26 years of experience, right? If I were to write my resume, I would put my work experience before my education, because I've had very extensive experience in my field of work. So that's the rule that students should follow, or people should follow, and that's what I advise. That whatever is the strongest element um of your skill set, you should mention that first, right? Earlier on in the career, education takes precedence over work experience. Maybe later in life, your work experience will become more stronger than your education, so that should be mentioned first. Okay, work experience, you should start with the most recent work experience first. You should highlight your accomplishments. You should use bullet points, short sentences, and you should speak the company's language. Use terms in the job posting. Okay, what do I mean by speak the company's language? Uh, what I mean is that every company has got different terms that they use, and that becomes obvious when you look at the job posting. For example, some companies may use the term that we are seeking somebody with good communication skills. Other companies may use that you have to be an effective communicator. Now, these are two different two different words being used for the same skill set. So you should use the words which the company has put in the job postings. That is not only beneficial for the company. When they review your resume, they'll see that you speak their language, you are using the same terms that they are using. But also, if your resume is going through the applicant tracking system, the tracking system is going to pick up those words and will probably more likely to select you and put you on the interview pile. So you use short sentences with bullet points in order to explain what you have done in a particular company. And finally, quantifiable results are better than subjective statements. And I've given an example of this. For example, instead of writing my efforts led to a significant increase in sales, it would be better if you wrote the social media campaign that I designed for the store led to a 25% increase in total sales over the previous year. So something which is more definite, which is more quantifiable, and which actually tells the recruiter that you have actually attained a particular target or a particular result by whatever you have done. So that would be a better way of writing it than just saying that you know your efforts led to an increase in sales, or your efforts led to the business booming. Those top types of subjective general statements should be uh, sidelined for statements which are more specific and which are more quantifiable. Okay. Okay, this is an example that I have put forth pertaining to work experience. Mention the date from when to when, the position where you have worked, the company in which you have worked, and what have been your responsibilities and your duties in a particular company. Okay, the next item on your CV that you should talk about is your computer proficiency. Now, this is something which in today's world has become very important. And I think that companies normally, look for people who are good with computers, who are comfortable working with computers and comfortable working with different types of software. So you should basically mention what type of computer proficiency you have. I think nowadays it is not a question of whether you are computer literate or you're not computer literate, but the question is that how proficient you are in your computer skills. So that is something that you should specifically mention, and you should specifically also mention what type of hardware and software programs you are comfortable with, or programs that that you have learned, what type of languages that you know. I know for a fact that when I was about 10 years ago, when I was teaching professional chartered accountants, prospective chartered accountants, we were doing the foundation course for ICAP. There were some students at that point in time who were very good with computers, and those were the students who always got called for interviews and who always got selected. So computer proficiency and computer skills in today's world, I think, has become mandatory. You should know it. It's taken for granted, and you should mention it on your CV. Okay, the next heading on your CV should be of extracurricular activities, or or your hobbies. And in this area, you should mention what your hobbies are, what type of sports you play, if you have membership of any recreational clubs, membership of any other societies, Rotary Club or any other club that you are associated with. You should mention that, because that makes you more marketable to the recruiter. It makes you less of a bookworm and more of a person who is also very sociable. Remember, social skills are also very important in any type of work that you do. I've been teaching a communication course for many years. And I would always ask the question to my class, to my students, that can you think of any profession where you don't have to communicate with people? And then they scratch their heads, and after a while they say no, they can't think of anybody. So there is no profession on the face of this planet where you don't have to communicate with people. You have to communicate with people in almost any profession that you can think of. This area basically demonstrates to the recruiter that you are a sociable person, and you are a person who is not only professionally competent, but also somebody who also has a social life and has some hobbies and sports and other types of non-academic endeavors. Okay, so that is what you should mention in this part of the resume. Okay, references. What is the rule to follow for references? Which is probably the last part of your CV would be references. References are important because they give you credibility. If you have at least you must have not less than two and not more than three references. What type of references should be? References should be people who know you and people you know. Probably if you are fresh out of college or freshly qualified, newly qualified, then most of your references are going to be your professors, your teachers who have taught you. If you have a work history, or if you have been working in companies, your references are probably going to be people, your supervisor, your bosses, your boss, or your colleagues who have been working with you. So that those will be the types of references. My recommendation to you would be that you should not select, many times in Pakistan specifically, people collect, close relative family members as references, and that is not advisable. You should not, references should not be close relatives or immediate family members. References should be, professional people, and references should be your people who have taught you and people who know you. The best references, of course, are those who are known to the company where you're applying to. For example, if you're applying to a company, and if you know an employee in that particular company, that would be a good reference. If you know the client of a particular recruiter where you're applying, that would be a good reference. A supplier or an associate of that particular company would be a good reference. So in selecting your references, you should ensure that you should try to have a reference who is somehow the other known to the company where you're applying, and that would make a good reference. The last thing that I need to mention about references is that you must ask the permission of the referee before listing them in your on your CV. Imagine if I were to get a phone call and somebody has listed my name as a reference without asking my permission, or without letting me know. I would be caught off guard, and I would probably not be in a position to say much about that individual. Right, I won't probably give a bad reference, but I would not be able to say much because I would not have been forewarned. So it is better that if you put somebody's name as a reference, you should ask their permission, just to forewarn them. And also, as common courtesy, it is common courtesy, if you put somebody's name down as a reference, you should let them know. Right. So this is something which I feel you should know as far as references are concerned. Okay, things to remember. How long should be the resume? Length of a resume. Initially, for people who are just starting their careers, your resume should not be more than one page. Right. uh, because why? Because recruiters don't have time. They don't have time to go through 2 3 pages for entry level positions. Right. So that one page should be enough. As you progress in your career, you go into middle management or upper management, you can have a longer resume. uh, why? Because there'll be fewer applicants for that particular position, and secondly, a recruiter will spend more time in reviewing a resume for a higher position. So I think the length varies depending upon what type of position you're applying for. For entry level position, one page should be enough. For middle management, upper management position, it can be longer. It can be 2 pages, 3 pages, or more. ठीक है. Applicant tracking system, I've already spoken to you about the applicant tracking system. Applicant tracking system is an automated system which basically either the software scans the resume, a soft copy of the resume is scanned, or a hard copy is scanned, and the tracking system, tracks the CV for particular phrases, words, things which have already been pre-fed in that particular program. So that's why it is important to have on your resume information, language which is used in the job posting. Read the job posting very carefully and try to use that same language. Of course, you must have those skills which are there in the job posting. I mean, if they want you to be a finance manager and you don't have finance skills, just don't put there to be selected by the tracking system. You cannot lie, but try to use the same language. Presentation. Your resume must be easy to read. Information must be easy to, a recruiter must not be searching it for information on the CV. It must be, there are many templates available of CVs on the internet. You can do a Google search, or you can do a search on the internet and download various templates which are available. um, and use them. Use the template which most which you like most, because it's like, whatever you feel is appears better for you, you should use those templates. But remember, all the things that I've talked about, having bullet points, short sentences, using keywords, is essential in order to be selected for the interview, right? Photograph. Many people ask me whether they should or should not put a photograph. Well, my advice is that you should put a photograph, even though how you look has nothing to do with your capability and competency. Looks have nothing to do, physical appearance have got nothing to do with a person's abilities, capabilities, and competencies. But the photograph is just there so that it becomes easier for the recruiter to basically identify you. A recruiter may be going through hundreds of CVs, and if you put a photograph, it becomes easier for the recruiter to scan your resume or to remember you. If you do get called for the interview, and if you have already an interview, it becomes easier for the recruiter to identify you. For some jobs, of course, they require you to have a photograph, and if they do mention it on the job posting, in the job posting, that you must have a photograph, that you should put a small photograph. And remember that photograph should not be a photograph which, it should be a photograph in formal dress, passport size, taken at a studio, right? It should not be you going, your photograph that you have photoshopped from your picnic with your friends, right? So it must be professionally done, right? Typos and grammaticals are a no-no for a resume, right? Typos, grammatical errors would is one-way ticket onto the reject pile, right? Sometimes student ask me, how long should it take you to write your resume, right? And sometimes I ask that questions to students in my class, that how long do you think it should take you to write a resume? And people say, well, it should take me a couple of hours, maybe a day. And I say, couple of hours and a day is basically, you're going to make some typos, and you're going to make some grammatical errors. Resume takes time. Resumes should take you anywhere from 5 to 7 days to write a good resume. you know so you must go through, write a resume, do a draft, go through it again, make sure there are no typos, make sure there are no grammatical errors. Give your resumes to your professional colleagues, or people, somebody that ask them to go through it, to uh, improve it, make changes to it, make suggestions. So you must go through this process of continuous improvement in order to basically come up with a product which is a killer resume, which is, somebody looks at it, a recruiter looks at it, and immediately will put it on the interview pile and not on the reject pile. Okay. Irrelevant information. you know I have found many people who are very bad at this. They put a lot of information which is irrelevant. What do I mean by irrelevant information? Well, irrelevant information is information like CNIC number, passport number, marital status, number of children. But all these things are not relevant. They have nothing to do with your capability, your proficiency. Some people even put down gender. I mean, that's all irrelevant information, right? Remember, many companies and countries of the world have laws whereby it is illegal to discriminate on the basis of gender, race, religion, nationality, national origin, right? So don't put that information at all because it's irrelevant information. Of course, there are some jobs like government jobs or maybe the armed forces, for which they will require you to have a particular nationality. For example, government jobs are only in Pakistan, they are only applicable to Pakistani nationals. So if that is the case, and if the posting asks you for what type of to mention your nationality, then you can mention it. Otherwise it's irrelevant. So don't waste precious resume space on information which is irrelevant, which is not required, right? A lot of students, especially, they write resumes as if they're answering a question. So they put everything in, they put everything down, right? You're not answering a question paper where an examiner is going to correct it. Recruiter will not spend time on your resume. He or she will only spend 1 minute or less in reviewing your resume. So don't put irrelevant information which is going to more likely than not to put you on the reject pile and not on the interview pile. Okay, so remember that. Okay, that uh, leads us to writing a cover letter. Cover letter is something which accompanies a CV, and some uh, job posting specifically asks for a cover letter to be included with the CV, or an email to be included with the CV. You must send your CV through email. Now, cover letter is something which is must if it is requested in the job posting. It is a mini sales pitch. Cover letter is a wonderful thing for you. It is a you know godsend. It is a blessing from God. Why? Because cover letter gives you more space where you can make a much better sales pitch about your capabilities and your competencies, right? You can highlight your in the cover letter, you can highlight your best achievement relevant to that particular job, right? You have one whole paragraph. Wow, that is so much of space. One paragraph about writing about yourself, your achievement, what you have done in a particular position, and what were the results of whatever you had done. So that is something that you can mention in a particular cover letter, because you may not have space in the resume. And of course, a cover letter, the format of the cover letter is that it starts with a salutation or a connection. For example, dear sir, I'm uh, writing to apply for a position which was advertised in such and such place, and I have attached uh, uh, a brief resume which I feel should be interesting enough to grant me an interview. And then you should move on to the next paragraph, where you mention an achievement that you have done in a particular company, and what results you have achieved. And in the last paragraph, you should close it with an action call. Okay, for example, I will, if there is any information that you need, please feel free to call me. I will call you, you know, next week, sometime next week, to find out when it is convenient so that we can meet for an interview, or to set up an appointment for an interview. It should end up with an action call. So that's the basic uh, model of a cover letter. Okay, you have written your cover letter, you have made your resume, and now you get your interview call. What to do? How to prepare for your interview? When you go for an interview, you must remember that interview is a presentation where you are selling your skills. So it is a special presentation situation, and you must keep in mind all of the presentation skills that you have learned in school and college and universities, and all the presentations that you have made. It is a presentation where you'll be sitting in front of a panel or a recruiter, one person, and you'll be telling him or her about your skills, your competencies, and your career goals. Uh, The other thing that you must remember is that you must follow a particular dress code. Accountancy is a very conservative profession, and you must dress conservatively for the interview. Uh, uh, what I recommend is that you should put on a suit and a tie, and at least a tie and a jacket if a suit is not available, right? Um, for women, I recommend that they should also be dressed professionally, and if they want to put on makeup, it should be light, and they should put on light jewelry. If they do want to wear jewelry, it should be light. So dress, the basic word is conservatism. You must dress conservatively. It's a serious profession. Accountancy is a serious profession, and you must look, and your dress must project seriousness. So that is the key word that you should follow. You should be punctual, but don't be too early. Sometimes people arrive at interview maybe 45 minutes before time, and I think that's too early, because if you arrive very early, you will just get more nervous, and you will get more rigidity and all. You arrive about 10 minutes, 15 minutes before the interview, and that would be fine, right? So don't arrive too early, but be punctual. Arrive before time, 10 minutes before time. Things to carry. What should you carry for the interview? You should carry a folder with your CVs in it, extra copies of your CVs in it. Wouldn't it be great if you have a panel of interviews and only one person had your CV, and you open up your folder and you hand out extra copies of your CV to the remaining members on the panel? I mean, right from the get go, that point onwards, you have actually won the hearts of the interviewers, right? So you should carry a folder with extra copies of your um resume, and you should carry a pen with a writing pad in case you need to note down something which comes up in the interview. Maybe you need to write down a person's name or a phone number, or something else. Maybe you need to write down an address or something. So you should carry that with you. Okay. Um, most importantly, most importantly, for the interview, you have to, before you go for the interview, you should do a background search on the company. You should know the company as if you work there. What do I mean by that? Go onto the internet, do a search, internet search, web search, find out about the company, what the company does, what it manufactures, what type of partners are there, what type of businesses it is in, what is the history of the company. Find out enough information about the company that enables you that makes you feel as if you work there. Go onto the social media, Facebook, uh, LinkedIn, Twitter. Uh, on these pages, basically companies post information about their internal working, and get to know the people who are working in that particular company through the social media, through the company, not the individual Facebook page, but the company Facebook page. Go onto the company Facebook page. Maybe if they have had an activity over there in the company, maybe they are working on some type of special special opportunity for the employees. So get to know the company, do complete background research, because when you go and you carry yourself in the interview, when you talk to the people, recruiters in the company, it is going to do wonders if the recruiters feel that you are part of the company, that you know the company as well as they know the company. And that would make a connection which would be it will create a bond or a connection which would go in your favor, not only in the short term but also in the long term. So do comprehensive background research about the company before you go for the interview. Okay, read job postings carefully. Look for terms, language, and repeat the same in the interview. Speak the language of the firm. I've already mentioned this before several times while writing your resume. You should do the same before you prepare for the interview. You should, try to find out what type of terms, what type of, uh, language the company uses, and try to use that same language when you are answering questions in the interview. Okay. Prepare questions beforehand. Do you know what the interviewers are going to ask you? Do you, of course you know what the interviewer is going to, what the recruiters are going to ask you. If you take a pen and paper and you write down the questions which you feel that the interviewers will ask you, write down 20 questions, and then I can guarantee that 90% of the questions are going to be from the questions that you have written down. What sort of questions do recruiters ask? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? Why do you want to work for our company? Why should we hire you? Where do you see yourself 5 years from now? What are your career goals? What are your, academic objectives? Uh, what is your strength? What are your weaknesses? Um, tell us more about yourself. Tell us about a situation which you have faced, uh, in which you have learned something. Tell us about your greatest achievement in the last job. Why do you want to leave your last job? you know um, I mean, write down the answers to these questions, and 90% of the questions which the interviewer will ask you will be from these questions. So if you prepare these questions when you're sitting in front of the interviewer, and you're giving the answers like clockwork. A question is asked and you're ready with the answer. What I recommend also is that you should write down the answers to the questions that I have just um, repeated, I've just said over here, and then show these answers to somebody, to a professional. Maybe you can go to a professional recruiter, or you can go to your supervisor, or go to somebody that you know who will advise you. Go to your university professor even. Go to him or her and tell them that these are the questions and these are my answers. Please advise me on them. And then they will advise you that, okay, this is a right answer. This is what you should say. This is what you should not say, so on and so forth. So prepare questions beforehand. That is the best way to prepare for an interview, is to prepare questions beforehand. Answer all questions politely. That goes without saying. Prepare questions to be asked. The recruiter will ask you, do you have any questions? Right? And if the recruiter asks you that question, don't say that, did you watch the cricket match last night? That's not a relevant question. You should prepare questions that you want to ask the recruiter. Remember, an interview is a two-way street. Just like the company is assessing you and your capability and your uh, personality profile, your competency, whether it is suitable for the job posting that they have advertised, you are also reviewing the company. You also want to find out information whether the company is right for you. So it has to be a match. So just as they have asked you questions, you can also ask relevant questions, and prepare those questions, the questions that you want to ask them. Like, for example, you know um, what is your typical career path like? What opportunities do I get for professional growth? If you are a student studying for some professional examination, what is your company policy regarding study leave? These are all relevant questions that you can ask the recruiter. So prepare not only for the questions that the recruiters are going to ask you, but also prepare the questions that you want to ask the recruiter, right? And 1 out of 7 interviews is a pressure interview. What is a pressure interview? A pressure interview is when the recruiters purposefully put you in a in a difficult situation, in a pressure situation, when they try to get you angry about something. So normally, in most corporate jobs, pressure interviews are not common. They are more common in, if you're applying for emergency services, if you're applying for certain jobs in which people face pressure situations on a routine basis. So how to handle pressure interviews? Well, maintain your cool, answer as professionally and as assertively. Don't be submissive. Answer questions as assertively and as professionally as possible, right? But don't lose your cool. That's the key word in dealing with pressure interviews. Okay, finally, I would like to, you know, mention a quote by Henry Ford, who's the founder of Ford Motor Company. Whether you think you can or you think you can't, you're right. Remember that looking for a job in these difficult times of COVID uh, is tough, right? So you have to keep your spirits up. You have to, have a very happy disposition. In the earlier part of my education, I remember there was a point when during university I took a sales job as by selling home appliances, going home to home, door to door, selling appliances in downtown New York. And I remember that there was one thing that I learned from that particular experience is that um, that you should always have a smile on your face, right? I mean, I would make maybe 20 sales calls in a day, right? And maybe get one success out of 20 sales call. But for each one of those 20 sales call, there will always be a smile on my face, right? So because you have to keep your spirits up, in searching for a job, you will come across more rejections than acceptance. But but that's life, and you have to bear it, and you have to bear it with a smiling face, and you have to keep your spirits up. Success starts from here, from the mind, right? What you think, how you feel, and what manifests is always a match without exception. Remember that. Imran Khan, our prime minister, he won the Cricket World Cup in 1992. And I remember in one of the interviews, he said that 3 years before winning the World Cup in 1992, he had already won the World Cup in here, in his mind. He had already won it, right? I mean, he practically and physically won it later on, 3 years later, but 3 years earlier, he had won it in his mind. So if you have a positive attitude, if you're a winner over here, you're going to be a winner in life as well. In actual fact, you're going to be a winner. So if you think you can do it, or if you think you can't do it, in both cases you're right, right? So always think positive, always think that you can, and always win in your mind, and you will win eventually physically as well. And always be a tiger, be assertive. You have to go for it. Don't wait for a job to be somebody to knock on your door and somebody to bring a job to you on a silver platter. You have to take the initiative. You have to send out your CV. You have to go through job postings. You have to take the initiative, and you have to be a tiger. And that is the most important message that I can give you. Okay. Thank you, and God bless you all.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much for a wonderful presentation and the thought-provoking content. So we have some questions as well. So from the chat window, we have some question. So how many organizations use ATS? I believe it is automatic testing system or something like this,
Yeah,
sir.
applicant tracking system. Well,
Yeah.
applicant tracking system are used by large corporations who receive hundreds of CVs, and who have to go through thousands of CVs for entry level positions. Of course, ATS is probably not going to be used for positions in middle or upper management, but ATS is probably going to be used for entry level positions. Because if a company advertises for a position and they receive 3,000 applicants, nobody is going to sit and go through these 3,000 applicants. So what they're going to do is that they're probably going to have the process automated through an applicant tracking system, which will either scan the CVs, and they will look for particular keywords. They will look for particular algorithms which have already been programmed by that particular recruiter. And one of the ways to beat it, like I've said, is to put bullet points rather than paragraphs. Bullet points, put language, which is words, terms which have been used by the company in the job posting. And also do a Google search, find out what the language of the company is, what terms they use, and just repeat those terms wherever it is appropriate in your CV, and then that way you will have a better chance of being selected. So applicant tracking system is generally not used by small firms or medium-sized firms. It is mainly used by large recruiters and large companies.
Thank you, sir. So we have another question: how skills should be listed in the resume?
Skills, well, you can list the skills. You mean to say computer skills or other skills?
The question, the person has just mentioned that how skills should be listed in the resume.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Skills. If it's computer skills, it should be in the computer proficiency section. If it is other skills like good communicator, effective team player, uh, you know, financial modeling, they should be listed in the appropriate work experience section. Wherever you have had, particular experience of a particular skill, it is that skill should be listed over there, right? If you have any other skill, for example, if you are multilingual, if you know 3 4 5 languages, for example, then you should have another section called languages and language skills, and you should mention that you can speak, you are fluent in Spanish, German, Italian, French, Persian, whatever. So that should be mentioned over there. If you have another particular skill, then mention that as well on your CV, if you feel that that is relevant for the job, or if it makes you stand out over other candidates who are applying for that position. So you should mention that. You
Okay,
you
sir.
you
Thank you.
can you can, you can mention it in another, create another section and mention that in that
Okay.
section.
Yes, that is fine. So the next question is: are resume templates from resume websites ATS friendly?
I'm sorry, you were cutting.
Yes.
Can you repeat that?
Yes, he is saying that are resume templates from resume websites ATS friendly. He want to try to say that, for example, if
Yeah.
someone gets the template from any
Yeah.
website, is it ATS friendly?
Yes, ADS, sure. ADS friendly templates. Uh, there are many templates that people use. So ATS friendly templates are, ATS basically looks for words, particular sentences, particular words. uh, you can use any template that you want to, right? And it will just scan and then look at words. There are some templates which are very confusing, which has information spread out. I don't recommend those types of templates. Have templates which are much more easy to read and which are more simpler. Don't put too much of color and thrills and frills in your CV, right? Remember, a CV, yes, if you are a graphic designer, if you're a media person, and if that is your profession, then frills and thrills will work, right? But in accountancy, in management, in the corporate world, simple templates are mm, much preferable than very complicated ones. So use templates which are simple and which is easy for people to read information, to find information. I should not have to search for information. Oh, where is his contact number? That information should be there in the contact details at the top, right? So that
Okay.
sometimes people, contact information is there written at the left bottom corner. I mean, that's not advisable. It's very difficult to search for that information there. So have simple templates are more preferable if you're applying to the corporate world than complicated templates. But there are many templates out there in the market. I mean, on the internet you can have maybe 500 templates. Select a simple one which suits you, which you like, which you prefer.
Okay. Thank you. So we have next question. This is the simple one. So how and when we will get the certificate? So certificates will be sent out in next 24 hours at your registered email IDs that you have used while registering for the session. Okay. So we have another question from Mr. Mohammed Noman. Sir, is a CV and resume is a same thing or it is a different?
What resume?
Uh, are CVs and
Yeah, yeah,
resume
same
same
thing.
thing?
Yeah, CV is French, career vitae. I mean, it's the same thing. Resume and CV, it's It's a synonymous word. You can use one word or the other. It's the same thing.
Thank you. So Imran Sheikh Sahab says that amazing speaker. Thank you so much for your efforts and making lives easy for the job seekers. So thank you very
Okay,
much.
one comment I had is for all the participants. Thank you for participating, and I have prepared a handout. Abdul
Yeah.
Shakur has the handout. If you send your email addresses to Mr. Abdul Shakur, he will pass on that handout to you. My suggestion would be to give the handout to only those people who attended the session.
Yes, sure, sure, sure. We will
Thank you.
give them. Okay, so we have Hamad Sab. Hamad Sab, you are raising the hand, and if possible, just write down your question in the chat window or the question window. We will address it. So we have another question, sir, from Aurangzeb. Preparation of the financial statement. What accomplishment can be written? He's saying that, for example, I'm preparing the financial statement. What accomplishment should I write on the CV?
Preparing financial statements.
Yes, he's saying that I'm preparing financial statement, and what accomplishment should I write on the CV?
Well, that you have the ability to prepare financial statements. Just write it in those words.
Okay, okay, okay. Thank you. So we have another question from what should be the CV type for job circular in UK? What should be the CV type for job circular in UK? So
For
I
jobs.
believe this is, yeah, this is very ambiguous question and very generic one. What should be the CV type of the job circular in UK? So I think it will depend upon the job.
Yeah, it depends upon. Remember, one size does not fit all as far as resumes are concerned. One CV does not fit all the jobs. Your CV should be designed for the particular job that you're applying for. If you're applying for an audit position, for example, you should highlight your audit experience, if you have audit experience, on your CV. If you're applying for a position in management consultancy, for example, then you should highlight your management consultancy qualification or your management consultancy experience on your CV. So you should, your references will change with respect to the company that you're applying to. Remember, use references which the company would know of, or is in contact with their suppliers, recruiters, their clients, maybe employees working in the company. Use them as a reference if you know them, right? So the CV will the content of the CV will change depending upon what job, which company you're applying to and what job you're applying to. So one size does not fit all. Design it. If you The more time you spend in designing your CV to meet a particular job posting for a particular company, the greater success you will have in getting interviews.
Thank you, sir. So we have another question from Mr. Hamad that I have asked that may we skip the previous experience we had in detail?
uh, yeah, that's a good question. If you have significant experience, and if you're applying for a particular position for which you feel that the retail experience is not going to count for much, or may even look negatively, upon you, then it is better to skip it in the resume. If it comes up in the interview, you can mention that you have retail experience. For example, when I write my resume, I have experience selling home appliances door to door, when I was in university. But I don't mention that anymore on my CV, right? So yeah, I mean, if it's not relevant, if you feel it's a long time ago, and it may not help you, then don't mention it. If it is asked in the interview, you can mention it in the interview. If you feel that having retail experience will give you the edge over other people, sometimes it does happen, because retail experience, you learn a lot in retailing. I learned a lot when I was a salesman, right? So, or a salesperson. I learned a lot. So you learn a lot when you are every job teaches you something. Every job teaches you something. So you learn a lot. And if you feel that uh, that experience that you have learned is going to be beneficial for you in applying for that particular job, then mention it. But it is okay to eliminate experience as well which you feel is not relevant or which is too old, and which will not fulfill your purpose. It's fine, yes.
So we have another question. What we prefer, detailed paragraphs or bullet?
Well, your summary, the second part is your executive summary should be in a in a paragraph. But your experience, when you do the work experience thing, I would prefer bullet points. Some people write paragraph form, but bullet points are better, because they're easy to read, and they appear uh, easy to read, and they can be short, small sentences, and easy to understand. So bullet points would be preferable over paragraphs in the work experience section. In the summary section, a paragraph would be is more common.
Thank you. So we have another question from an international participant. Thank you so much for webinar. For skills, do we need to explain them or just list them? And is CV for scholarships or academic applicants applications the same as for job?
Yes, CV is your career vitae, your resume. It's the same, but the content is different. If you're applying for an academic uh, position, or an academic PhD program, for example, you're probably going to include academic information in your CV. What journals you have done, what research work you have done, what type of articles you have published, right? So the content will change, but the basic formatting is more or less the same. And generally, for academic scholarships, the CV can be, a couple of pages. You don't need to stick to just a one page length, if it is not for an entry level position. For academic CV, you can have a greater CV, because academic CVs or CVs for academic scholarship, the board is interesting in finding out more about the candidate, what they have done, what they have achieved, what type of academic background they have. So
Okay.
the content will change, but the formatting will be probably more or less the same.
Thank you. So we have another question. National and international volunteer do really help.
Yes, I mean, like I said, every experience, every job is a learning experience, right? Even if it is not for and volunteering is the best experience that you can get uh, in university or in college or in schools, because volunteering teaches you a lot. It shows that you're compassionate. It shows that you can work under pressure. It shows that you are willing to contribute to the society, to the community. So it tells a lot about you to the recruiter. I think every learning experience, every work experience has a learning potential, and and you should mention it. Volunteering is one of the best learning experiences that you can get.
Okay, thank you. Sir, what is the method of mentioning executive education certifications?
Executive education certification, um, you can mention it. You can have a separate heading, professional certification. Some people do have professional certification as a separate column, and or as a separate heading, and you can mention that over there. If you have some certificates, or you can also mention it in your co-curricular activities, that if you have taken a particular course, or if you've taken a particular uh, you know uh, certification from some institute, or from some body, some other professional body, you can mention that in the co-curricular activities as well. uh,
Okay, thank you. So we have another question. If someone left because of performance, how he she respond to this question? Why you left the previous company?
Very interesting question. Um, if you you mean if somebody asks you in the interview that you have left due to performance? Well, uh, there are various ways of expressing yourself uh, without looking bad, or without it looking bad upon you. uh, Over here, what I would suggest is to use euphemistic language, euphemisms. Euphemistic language is language which actually explains a particular concept or position in a better way. For example, we don't have any old people, we have senior citizens. you know uh, Poor people don't live in slums, the economically disadvantaged occupy substandard housing in the inner cities. That's another example. So I think if you have been laid off because of performance issues, you can use euphemistic language, in order to explain uh, that you were facing difficulties, and also that every failure has a learning experience built in it. So you have learned from your failures, and you should focus in your answer. You should focus more on what you have learned than the actual failure. Yes, maybe you didn't succeed, but obviously there must be some learning experience, and that learning experience that you have gained from that particular failure, or from that particular challenge, is something that you should expound on in the interview, or you should put forth in the interview.
Okay, okay. So is it okay when we mention other certificates which is not related with our field?
Yes, it's okay, but remember I said that um, your two things that you must remember: objective is to get an interview. You have 30 seconds to do it, right? So if you mention information which does not fulfill those two objectives, don't mention it, right? Get an interview. If it's not relevant, then don't mention it, because in that 30 seconds, irrelevant information is more likely to put you on the reject pile. So when you're
Okay,
writing your CV, keep these 2 points in mind, that you know uh, the recruiter, you want to be called for an interview, right? And recruiter is going to look at it only for 1 minute or less, right? So with
okay,
that, these two things in mind, review again your resume, and have it specifically targeted for a particular position, or for a particular company.
okay. So thank you. Next question is what to answer for a question of what do you expect as a package for the job?
Okay, that's a good question. Often recruiters ask, okay, what is your salary expectation, or what was your last salary, and what salary are you expecting from this company? Well, uh, the point is that if you say too high, the company is going to, you know, uh, maybe turn you down. And if you say something which is a figure which is too low, then the company will feel maybe you're not worth it, right? So how to answer that question? Well, I would suggest that you should answer that question by reversing it, by asking them that what is the package that they offer for a position like this, right?
Okay,
And
okay,
if you are forced to, if you are forced to mention a figure, if you're forced to mention a figure, then don't mention a range of figure. Range is not good. Mention a specific figure which you feel that you are worth, right?
okay, okay,
Or you feel that you should get from that particular job. But initially, try to put that question to the recruiter, that what is your salary package for a position like this, for a person with my capability.
Okay, we have a question from Babruk. If we have experience from 5 different companies, explaining all 5 will make CV very long. So, how many recent jobs should be explained in the CV if all jobs are relevant?
Well, if you work for 5 companies over a number of years, I assume that you have over 10 years of experience if you work for a company, or at least 2 years in a particular company. So, then you can have 2 pages mention because, remember, the more experience you have, the longer will be your CV. And if you're applying for a job, there'll be fewer candidates. So the recruiter will spend time, reviewing a 2-page resume. Recruiter will spend less time in reviewing resumes for entry level positions. They will probably not spend 10 minutes, but they will spend at least 2 to 3 minutes in reviewing your resume. So it is okay to go on to page 2 if you've had about 10 years of experience, which means that you're somewhere, not applying for an entry level position, but something higher than entry level, right? So mention your, I think, mention your experience. Is always uh, Experience is always valued more by recruiters than qualification. Let me tell you the secret, right? In fact, now, the IT people uh, are saying that we don't care about qualification anymore. We just care about your skills and your experience, right? uh, well, I mean, that's not universally true, but experience is something which has value. So I think that you should mention if you have had experience with, and but if you have had experiences where you have worked in companies, you have switched companies very often, right? then that doesn't look good, because that seems as if you keep on switching, or you keep on changing companies, right? So you should try to then mention, the latest, the most recent companies only. Other than
Thank
that,
you.
if you've had at least 2 years of experience in a company, you should mention it, because that's worth a lot in
We
the
will
eyes of the
be
recruiter.
okay. We will be considering last 2 questions only, sir. We
Okay,
have
sure, sure, sure.
numerous many questions. We have many questions from the participants, but there is a time limitation as well.
I understand.
So,
I understand.
yes, thank you very much,
I've
sir.
been speaking for an hour and a half, and I can,
Yes.
you know,
So I have a question that is interesting one. So any suggestions or recommendations for PPSC
PPSE.
interview? Any suggestions for PPSC interview?
What is
PPS
what is
Punjab
PPSE?
Punjab
Acha,
Public Service Commission. Yes, yes.
Punjab
Public
Public
Service.
Service Commission. Okay, okay. Well, the Punjab Service Commission is civil services, right?
Yes, sort of.
Civil
Yes.
services people, do sometimes take pressure interviews of candidates. So I think the best way to handle PPSC interviews is to behave professionally, right? And to answer the question uh, as competently as possible. And uh, and and also, basically, the idea, I think, what PPSC favors is that you must create a connection or a link with the interviewers. If you create a link with the interviewers in terms of common experiences, common, educational alma maters, find out, in the interview process, find out what university, what college, what qualifications they have. And if there is some commonality, you should build upon it, because that is something that creates a connection between the interviewer and the recruiter. So try to create a connection, try to create a connection as early as possible. And then, then the interviewers will probably give you more benefit of the doubt, because they'll come over. Remember, human nature, we're all human beings, and we all have our likes and dislikes. So if we are able to create a common link with an individual, it becomes easier for us to talk to them, right? So try to create that link.
We have very interesting question, and this is the last question, and we regret for the other participants. So for the question we have not been able to answer. So this is very interesting question: how to negotiate salary expectations.
How to negotiate salary expectation? I've already said that if they ask you what your uh, expected salary is, then you should
How to negotiate? Yeah,
uh,
please.
to negotiate. Well, if company will give you an offer, for example, they will mention the salary that they're offering you, the package that they're offering you, right? My advice would be to if it is something which is, above your expectation, then you will obviously accept it. If it is below your expectation, then you can make a counter offer, and you can say, this is what my minimum expectation would be. So then the company will review its package and will come back to you.
Okay. So thank you very much, sir, for your valuable time as well. Thank you for each and every participant who have participated in this wonderful session, and I'm very much pleased that we have approximately 38 questions in the Q&A section, and we have many other questions in the chat window as well. So,
Okay.
sir, thank you very much again for an interactive and engaging session, and thank you to all who have attended, especially for our members and the non-members. So thank you
Okay.
very much again.
Thank you, Abdul Shakur. I loved it. Thank you. Thank you for
Yes, sir.
inviting me.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. Okay, bye bye,
Bye
everyone.
bye.
Okay, okay.
Cheers.